Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another YouTube Live from Altenew. My name is Sara Newman, and I am so very happy to be here with you this evening or this afternoon, wherever you are. And I hope you are all doing well and keeping safe and healthy. So, tonight we have a full lineup with some really fun and easy to use stamps that we're going to be exploring, and also some dies, a little bit of stenciling, some inking, and so on. So, while we're waiting for folks to jump in, I'll just say hello to, oh, hi, Sue. Nice to see Sue jumping in. It's always good to see your name pop up, Sue. Our Orem is going to be behind the badge today. Hi, Sissy. Nice to see you. And Orem is ahead of the game. She's ahead of me today, saying to be sure to share today's YouTube Live while we are live. And the way to let us know is to post in the comments down below. Just let us know that you shared and let us know how you shared. And you can be in for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. Hi, Donna. Nice to see you tonight or this afternoon, wherever you are. It's my evening. Sue says she's always here and enjoys all the Altenew videos. Yeah, I was watching Nicole the other night. She did such a great job. She was really inspiring. So, yeah, hello, everybody. And hello, Altenew friends. So it's great to see folks jumping in. Howdy from Charlotte, North Carolina. That's great to see. I love seeing where everybody's coming from. I'm here in Hamburg, Germany, so we're just headed to about 9:30 in the evening. So if I refer to it as evening, that is why. Hi, Megan in Chicago. La Quieta has shared. Thank you so much. I hope I pronounced your name all right. I hope I did it correctly. You'll have to correct me if not. Uh, Lydia made 5 card front. Oh, I missed that. I have to go back and check that. The other thing that's really great about the Altenew videos, of course, is that you can go back and watch them later, because sometimes you might miss an evening or an afternoon. Maybe you've got something else going on, but you can always go back and catch up with them later, which is great. Okay, so we'll just jump right into our session today, because I'm really excited about this stamp set. So today we're going to be playing with the Build-a-Flower Begonia stamp set. And this is kind of what I think of as like a classic Altenew layering stamp. So as you can see here, you've got a nice big blossom on here. You've got a nice big leaf that will go along with it. And then you've also got your sentiments too. So let's talk a little bit about the layering. I know a lot of you guys are layering experts. You've probably known this about Altenew for a very long time. This is what I tend to think Altenew is best known for. But there may be some new folks jumping in too. So when we're talking about layering, I think you can see the 4 flowers on here. When you stamp each of these layers, they one on top of the other in different colors of ink, they will create a really beautiful dimensional flower with lots of shading. It looks just absolutely beautiful. So you can see here on the layering guide that you're going to start with your outline stamp, and then you'll use a silhouette stamp. You'll go on to the middle stamp, the detail stamp, and then you'll end up with this beautiful flower. And the same deal goes for the leaf on here as well. So we've got a beautiful begonia, which can be stamped as it's supposed to be stamped. I'm using air quotes for that. You can also stamp it in some other ways too. So you don't have to use all of the layers together, and that's what we're going to explore tonight. Now the sentiment on here, it's all kind of intermixed, wrapping around this big beautiful scripty word you. So you can have just for you, thank you, so totally amazed by you, and you are awesome. So it's a really nice stamp set that I think can go along for lots of occasions. As I mentioned, so I'm holding up the insert that you also get with the stamps, and this is where the layering guide is. So you've got that to hand, but then on the inside, you can see lots and lots of ideas, including what I call their recipes. So they give you the listing of which ink colors they've used to create each of these. Now for these ones here on this panel and then here, these are full size. So you could actually cut this apart, put it into your stamp positioner, and use it as a placement guide if you wanted to. So keep that in mind. You are able to do that as well. So there's a lot inside this little folder that comes with your stamps, including that very important layering guide. So we're going to be playing with those stamps. They do have a coordinating die set that goes along with it, and that's going to give you the outline for the flower and the outline for the leaf. So very handy to have that. So that's my big to-do this evening. I just had so much fun with those stamps. It is a really, really beautiful set. The one other thing that I wanted to show you is this one. We're going to be working a little bit with this. I used it for a background. It's the Flowing Drops stencil, and it's one that I really love because it can go for so many themes, and it makes a really beautiful, kind of all over, really gentle background. So I love this stencil, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of stippling with that. As for the inks that we're using today, I'm using a bunch of different colors that I just pulled from my stash. So none of the inks that I use today are ones that you must have to do the techniques. They're just colors that I liked. What I will do though, because of the layering, let's see if I can hold these up. I'm going to be using a lot of colors that come in like a set of 3. So I use the small cubes. These also come in a larger full-size ink pad. But basically you can see here I've got a light, a medium, and a dark of the same color, this beautiful blue. So this is going to give me my silhouette layer, my middle layer, and my detail layer. So the only thing that you probably really want to have on hand is a variety of inks in the same color. So we're going to be looking at how to do the stamp layering as you are supposed to, again in my air quotes. You don't have to do it this way. And then we're going to be playing with some different combinations. So this is that big beautiful begonia as it is supposed to be layered. And then we're also going to look at some other ways. I have a lot. Sue, I've got a lot of cards for us today. Then we're going to be looking at doing just maybe 2 of the layers or 3 of the layers. You can see it's a nice big flower, so it can be used as a statement, a focal of its own, or you can group them together. And then we'll be looking at what happens when you use different layers in there. And of course, this being die cut means that you can pop them up on foam tape and you can have them going as more of a dimensional element. But I think what we can do is get started with the first card, and then I'll kind of show you all the other stuff that I've got. I've got a big pile of fun things to share with you tonight. So why don't we get started? And what I'm going to do is tilt down my camera so that you can see my work surface, and then we'll get going. So hang in there with me. Tilt you down. And lots of comments about that flowing. I know, I love it. It's really one of those that you can use again and again and again. Okay, so I have got my Misty on hand. Now, if you have a stamp positioner, this really does make the layering process a lot easier and a lot more foolproof. If you don't have one, you can definitely do this with an acrylic block, though, as we all used to in the olden days before we got our stamp positioners. But basically what we're going to be doing is working from the bottom up with this. Now, with this one, I'm going to grab a couple of my inks. Let's see. You can do your outline with whatever dark color ink you want. You can go with a black. For this one, I'm going to use Moon Rock, and this is a nice dark gray. So that's going to be my first layer. And then Pink Pearl, Coral Bliss, and Ruby Red. So let's see here. Here's my Pink Pearl, my Coral Bliss, and my Ruby Red. So you can see that I've got my, this is going to be my outline. I've got my light, medium, and dark color. So I've got these ready to go. Set these over here. And then my Moon Rock. Moon Rock is one of those colors that, with the grays, I just absolutely love it. I've even got a little swatch that I like to keep on hand between the colors, the grays that I use the most often. This, as you can tell, is an older ink pad. It doesn't have the color swatch on it like the newer ones. But if I have something like this, then I can just take a quick glance at it and see which of those inks, which of those colors I want to use. So I'm going to set this aside. I've got a piece of white cardstock in my MISTI, and I'm just going to start with this first the outline layer on here. Okay. I'm just going to get rid of that plastic piece for now and pop down my outline. Okay, and then I'll just ink this up with the moon rock. And you'll see this beautiful crisp image. Now, I would say that if you are in a hurry and you need to do a card quickly, that by having this beautiful outline and a quick sentiment, you are pretty much ready to go with a quick and easy card. I'm going to do it one more time. I see that I didn't quite get that bit in the center. But do you see what I mean? It's just a beautiful, bold outline. Now, you could also color in this if you like to do coloring, maybe with either markers or inks or colored pencils. You could do a lot with it. A very simple image like that. But we're going to take it one step further. So now I'm going to go grab the second layer. I'm going to work on this with this silhouette here. One thing when you first got your stamps, you'll notice is a couple of the stamps have a lot of surface area, and it really helps if you prime it first. I use just a plain white school eraser. You're going to rub it all over the back, clean it off, and then that tends to help you get a better first impression the first time you use your stamp. So if you find that you're not getting perfect inking, you may give that a try. And that's a little trick that I learned from our Tasneem, taught me that. Okay, so I'm going to try and align this right on top of here. I think I'm doing okay. And with this one, I'm going to ink it up with the pink pearl. Okay, so again, close that up and then ink up my stamp. And this is the pink pearl. Okay, and there we go. Again, I would say, you know what, if you were working quickly on something, sometimes we need cards right away, that you could use this image as it is. But again, we're going to go now with our third layer, which is this middle one here. So I'm going to grab this guy. And for this one, I'm going to use the Coral Bliss. And a lot of these little cube stamps come in sets of 4, so that you end up with a coordinating set. Makes it really easy. Okay, I'm lining this up. And for this, of course, when you've got your layering guide, you can kind of see they'll have some lines on here that give you some indication of where to really look to position. I always like to start with the area that's in the center of the flower, and then you can kind of move and match things from there. So we'll see how my aim is working upside down. Okay, and then this one, as I mentioned, is the Coral Bliss. So let's ink this up and see how I go. Okay. And there we go. So right away, you can start to see that dimension on there. It's so beautiful. It's just, this idea is brilliant. This is really what I think of when I think of Altenew stamps. Okay, and again, we could leave this as it is. This looks really nice, but I'm going to go for the next layer, which of course is this detail one here. Okay. And again, just position this in here. I always start with the center and then kind of move things around. It usually works best if I stand, but in this case, I'm going to try it while I'm still sitting. Move these in a little bit more. And this last layer I'm going to do with the ruby red. So this is the darkest of those colors. And there we go. So ta-da, quickly and easily. And I just absolutely adore this. I think this is so pretty. And that begonia shape, it's big. It's a nice big focal element if you want it to be a focal element, but it can also be used, of course, with your die cuts. You can die cut this and pop it out and have it be one element on a card, or you can do multiples. And once you start getting into this process and you really experience how easy it is, then it's easier and easier to do lots of flowers, and you can kind of have a stash of them almost. So this is creating that flower motif. Now, as I mentioned, I was using the pink pearl and the coral bliss for this one, and I did another one using, instead of the pink pearl, I used, what did I have? Frosty pink and coral berry. So I just swapped two of those colors, but take a look at how different those are. This one has a much warmer base, and this one is a lot cooler. But just with the switch of two of the colors in there, it's the exact same flower, but you get such dramatically different looks. Even though if you were just to glance at them, you'd say, yeah, it's a beautiful pink flower. But you can see, even just with swapping out a couple of those pinks for slightly different shades, you get something really different. So the frosty pink is this one, and the pink pearl is this one. So different. So just wanted to point that out to you. I love seeing different ways that you can get different looks from your inks. And we all have our favorite ink stash. I think you guys know that Aqualicious is one of mine, but this is just a really nice way to see the variety. Now with the card, as you can see, I've just added the Just For You, and with this, I'm really using the Obsidian black ink a lot. This is the pigment ink, and it just gives such a beautiful crisp look. So that's what I've stamped on here. Now I've also done some spattering around the outside. You'll notice, and that's with black ink, you'll notice that I don't have any of that on my flower, and that is because I took my die, so from the die set, take the die from the flower and die cut it from just a piece of scrap paper, pop it down on top, and then do your spattering, and then of course that will mask off any areas where you don't want to get any of that ink, but otherwise it gives you a nice little spattered background. So I've got a little bit of baker's twine wrapped around here, and that goes around on the inside of the card, and then the ends are kind of hidden underneath this piece, which is up on some foam tape. So this is how the design is supposed to, again, I'm in air quotes, this is how it's supposed to be used, but there are some other alternate ways to use it. And we're going to look at this card next. And I'm going to talk about the stenciling, but first I want to show you the flowers, because these are done in a little bit different fashion. So rather than doing the silhouette piece, and again by that I mean this bold all over design, instead of that I'm using the outline as well as these two. And I'm going to be using them with gray. I'm going to use the evening gray, which is a nice light color, and then I'll be using Moon Rock. So it's slightly unconventional. I think sometimes people don't think that flowers should be gray. I really do like the combination of these two grays. I think it's just something quite soft and pretty, and it coordinates really nicely with the green stenciling on here. So let's take a look at doing this. So I've got my two gray inks, and for the outline I'm going to be using my Obsidian. Okay, so again, I'm going to kind of shuffle things around here and pop in a piece of cardstock and then the outline image. Once again, just pop that down. And I'm going to ink this one up with the Obsidian, which is a beautiful black. And this is a pigment ink. The other inks that I'm working with are a dye ink. A pigment ink, as probably many of you know, is great not only for getting a nice crisp impression, but it also can be used for embossing techniques too. So there's my beautiful flower. Kind of clean this off. And then I'm going to go straight to the middle layer. Now with this, of course, I've got Moon Rock, which is the darker color, and Evening Gray, which is the lighter. So I'm going to be using the Evening Gray for this one. And pop this down. And get that in place as much as I can. I'm sure I'm not the only stamper who stands in order to work. I do all of my crafting while standing at my work table. Okay, so this is with the Evening Gray. Ink this up. And press. Okay. I think that just looks really, really nice. Again, very simple, very subtle. If you like to have a very subtle effect, this is a great one for you. Okay, and then the detail piece, and this one I'm going to do with Moon Rock. And again, I often refer to my little swatch here with my different grays. So the Evening Gray and the Moon Rock, and then the Lava Rock is another one. But those grays are really, I have to say, they really, really come in handy. Not only for outlines, but also for layering like this. Okay, position this one. Oops, I had it positioned. I'll reposition it now. Okay. We'll keep our fingers crossed on this one. Let's see how I did. And again, this one is with the Moon Rock. And I'm using a really nice smooth cardstock for these cards. I just find that a nice, good quality smooth cardstock is just going to give you a better result on those inking techniques. So there it is with our third layer. So that's skipping a layer. So you are absolutely able to do that. No problem at all. And then you'll have a really subtle, soft effect here. And then, of course, all you need to do is just grab your cutting die. And again, you've got the leaf and then you've got the flower. And then you'll just pop this down, run it through your die cutting machine, and you will end up with a piece that I had that was already die cut, which I don't have to hand, but I think you can envision it. And I'll show you once again the card. So here we go. And it's quite easy to pop down onto that stenciled background. But let's take a look at the stenciling because I wanted to show you that process as well. So I'm going to grab another piece of cardstock and the stencil. And you can, if you want to, simply hold it in place while you're doing your inking. For something like this, I like to tack it down with a little bit of tape just on the outside edges here. And for this one, I wanted it to be a very, very light color. So I'm going to use the Minty Mint with this. And maybe Sue remembers, I've talked about finding a fairly large stash of stippling brushes in my crafting area. And so I'm using these for my stenciling. So I'm just going to tap that right into the ink pad, and this is the Minty Mint, and just kind of swirl that color on there. I don't need to have a really dark, high contrast color. I want everything on this piece to be soft and subtle. And because of this design, the nature of the design, you could do just a section of it. You definitely don't have to have the whole thing. So a little or a lot. These stencils are so great. You can spray through them, you can ink through them, you can put your embossing ink through them, you can just do so many different approaches. But one of my many stipple brushes, I was mentioning in an earlier video, probably a couple of them, that I happened to discover quite a lot of these stipple brushes. Just in my stash, I must have gone through a really big stippling phase at some point in my crafting life, and just ended up with a ton of them. Forgot I had them, and now I'm really enjoying putting them to use. Okay, so I've done my inking on here. Can take off my tape and then just lift this off. And again, it is a soft and subtle look. It's just one that is so pretty and just a great basic. And I did find one that I had die cut, the flower I had die cut. So basically all you need to do, pop it down. You can of course have it going vertically, have it going horizontally. And because this is so soft and subtle, it means that you can really easily stamp a message on top of this without it all kind of fighting for brain space, you know, or fighting for eyes. It allows the message, which is the important part of your card, to stand out a little bit more. So on here, again, working with that great big U, it's so totally amazed by you. Now with the leaves down here, I also did these in just a 2-layer process. So I stamped the outline of the leaf and then just one of the layers, and I think I used frayed leaf for that green, and die cut those. And of course, I'm going to be popping them up on some foam tape to give a little bit of lift and dimension in there too. And just think too, with these colors and with this kind of general layout of the card, that you could swap the sentiment. This can be a birthday card, it could be a wedding card, it could be a sympathy card. You can go in lots of different directions with it. But I think really that flowing drop stencil is one that lends itself really nicely to so many floral stamps, but certainly this one is a great one for that. Okay, so, oh, and I have another little piece that I wanted to show you. So this was just a, I don't know, I think I was just stamping off maybe an excess or trying something out. And with this one, as you can see, it's not a really huge piece of paper, but I was thinking, rather than toss it, you could just add a little message on here. It would be a really nice sort of heartfelt message that you could tuck into someone's briefcase or bag or suitcase when someone starts to travel or go back to work eventually, or just leave a little note to tell somebody that you love them. So do keep in mind that you can use these smaller pieces as well for messages, even if they're not big cards. Okay, so another option that I wanted to show you is this one here. Now, we talked about using all of the layers of the blossom and just a couple of the layers, and this one is using the 2 more detail layers. So let me show you those again. So we're skipping the outline, we're skipping the silhouette and going straight to these 2 right here. So I'm going to grab these 2 and a couple of my purple inks. And I saw a comment on there just flash by as an ACT, yes, or ATC, sorry, artist trading card. Yes, you're right. It's just about that. And I think the size of that is like 3.5 by 2.5. Correct me if I'm wrong, on the artist trading card. And an artist trading card is another really fun. We could do a whole other video on that. Artist trading cards are little mini works of art that you trade with one another. And actually, I think a lot of Altenew stamps would lend themselves quite nicely to that smaller format. Okay, so again, I've got my cardstock on here, and I'm going to be looking for some inks. And in this case, I'm going to go with two in the purple family. So I'll be working with Lavender Fields. This is the lighter layer. And then Midnight Violet for my darker layer. And those are the only two that I'm going to be using with this one. Okay, so let me grab the first layer. And again, just pop that down. And this one I'm going to do with the Lavender Fields. Okay, inking that up. And stamp. So you'll get something that looks a little bit like a flower, a little bit not like a flower. It's a little bit tricky to see that. I'm actually going to ink this up again and do it one more time. But this is really where those dies come in, because it's not going to be until you add the second layer and until you die cut it that it starts to make a little bit more sense just visually. Okay, so I'll grab that detail layer and again do my positioning on here. There we go. I think. Okay, that'll be close enough, I think. Okay, and this one is going to be with our Midnight Violet. Purples are always a challenging color for me. It's not a color I go to naturally, so sometimes I like to challenge myself by using colors that I don't use as often. Okay, so there it is with the Midnight Violet on there. And I mean, just take a look at how much detail is on there and how pretty that is. Okay, so now all I need to do is do my die cutting. So once again, just grab that cutting die, position it in place. And when I do that, I like to, you can tell I've got some leftover masking tape on there. I like to make sure that I've got my masking tape going more onto the outer area of my cardstock than in this middle area, because the pressure from your die cutting machine will for sure press that in so much that it can tear. So once you have that die cut, then you'll have a piece that looks like this. And it starts to make a lot more sense. Well, maybe it's okay here too, but it starts to make more sense just visually as a flower shape once you've got that on there. Now for the leaves, we haven't talked about the leaves yet. With the leaves, you can also do these in the layering sequence if you want to. I really like the leaves, and you can see here that you've got the silhouette, the detail, and then two other layers on here. I really found that I just liked using various layers of them rather than having them all the way they're sort of supposed to be done. But it's always going to be up to you. So I'm just grabbing one of the middle, that's the middle layer of this. And let's see, I'm going to grab my frayed leaf for this one. Frayed leaf is always, as you might expect, a good one to have for leaves. Parrot is another favorite of mine for leaves. Parrot's a great one. And then, once again, you've got kind of the basic outline shape of that, but once you use your cutting die, which is going to look like this, again, pop that down, run it through your die cutting machine, and you'll have something like this. So then when you've got your two pieces together, and let me just pop these down onto a piece of white cardstock, then you can start to play with your positioning. And if you want, of course, you can add as many flowers, you can add as many leaves on there, and you can start to play with, do I want the flower coming down from this direction? Do I want to have the flower up on foam tape, the leaves glued down, and so on. So in this case, I simply took the flower, angled it facing into the card, and then had my 2 leaves on either side. And again, I've got some foam tape going on here. I've got my baker's twine wrapped around, goes on the inside of the card. And if you don't like the way this looks on the inside of a card, you can always take a second piece of cardstock and pop it on top to cover that. So that's always an option as well. And then I've got my "You Are Awesome" stamp on here. And that's stamped just directly onto the card front. And then this piece is another piece that's just been spattered with some black ink, just to give a little bit of variety. I kind of played with having that on there or not having it on there. So there are a couple of different options that you can do. So as you're playing with this too, and you're thinking of which way you want it to go, if you want your card vertically, horizontally, which way it works for you, I think you're going to have a lot of fun with that. Okay. Oops, there goes one die. You can hear it clattering. One more card that I wanted to show you or step through with you is using a little bit of masking. Now, masking is the process where you can have one image that looks like it's on top of other images, but you're not doing any actual die cutting or layering with this. So this is an old favorite for stampers. It's one of those techniques that's kind of magic once you get it figured out. Once somebody teaches you how to do it, it's super easy. So again, I'm going to move some things around here and get a piece of my cardstock in my MISTI. And I'm going to also be using a couple of the layers here. So let's see, I'm going to position this to go here. I know that I want my leaves to go in about this area. So for now, I just need to stamp my outline. And for this one, I'm going to be using the Obsidian pigment ink. It's a really good, crisp, classic black ink. And pop that down. And again, just look how perfectly that stamps. I just love that. And once again, of course, I could leave that as it is. Now for the rest of the stamp, I am going to be doing all of the layers. So let's see, I'll pull this one out here, and I'm going to use my beloved Ocean Waves and Dewdrop and Aqualicious for this. I can't resist. So I'm going to be working with the lightest color is Dewdrop. The medium layer is Ocean Waves, and then my detail layer is going to be Aqualicious. I don't know if it's possible for me to do one of these lives without working in those colors. Maybe that's going to have to be my challenge. Rather than trying to use purples, I have to try and restrain myself when it comes to those beautiful aqua colors. I just think they've done them so perfectly. Okay, so this is the Dewdrop. And again, just make sure that I've got that on here and stamp it like so. And then my second layer, I'm going to do this one with Ocean Waves. Okay, all the crinkling of my stamps. Okay, get this positioned. There we go. Okay, and this one with our beautiful Ocean Waves, which is this color here. Okay, and pop this color down. And it's just, I think it's always just so remarkable when you add that second layer and you start to see the depth and the dimension that you can get from this technique. I do remember the very first time I saw Tasnee demonstrating this. It was many, many years ago. I think it must have been 6 years ago because they were just brand new. And it was like my mind was blown. I couldn't believe it. You know, and she did the layering without a stamp positioner, just did it kind of freestyle. And we were all in awe. I think that's really when I fell in love with Altenew. It was just like I hadn't seen anything that new or that different for such a long time in the stamping world. I've been stamping for, I think it's like 25 years now. It's been a long time. It's a great hobby. Okay, so for the next one, the next layer, I'm going to be working with Aqualicious and ink this up. And this will be my final layer on here. So then take a look. I just think that is absolutely stunning. Really beautiful. Okay, so now to make the leaves look like they are behind my flower, essentially you need to start with your image that you want on the top first. Now, when I position my leaves down and I get my outline stamp and I kind of figure, okay, where do I want it to go? It will be overlapping some of this a little bit, but I don't want to put it down quite yet. I need to have a mask of some sort, and this is where the die cut piece of my scrap paper is going to come in handy. You can do this on a sticky note if you want to. Because I have these magnets, that's going to do the trick for me. So I just need to position this on top. I'm going to scoot it just slightly so that I can still see the black line of my stamped outline. And then I'll position this down. I'll pop it right there. And again, I'm going to be using my Obsidian pigment ink and then just pop this down. So then if I lift this up even just a little bit, then you can see that my leaf is going to be behind my flower. And then I can also do any of my other layering on here. So that's the leaf outline. And let me just grab one of the layering portions of this. And we'll see if I do okay on this positioning. And with this one, let's see, I think I will do, I'm going to use bamboo for this. Bamboo is one of my favorite colors for leaves as well. So I'm going to pop this color down and then add a little bit of that. Now, of course, you could do all the layers if you wanted to. In this case, I think that this is going to be fine. And there you can see I've got my leaf going behind my flower. And again, with the leaf, what's nice about this is that you can turn this around and have the leaf going the other way. You can have as much of the leaf showing as you want. You can really play with this quite a lot. It's a really, really easy technique and kind of a great one to have just in your back pocket as you do your stamping, because it does really allow you to create some depth on this. Christine, you're saying you really like this stamp. I do too. I just find that it is super versatile and beautiful. And it is, as I mentioned before, it is a nice substantial size. So if you're doing card focals, you could have one of these on the front of your card and call it good, add a stamp sentiment. But you can also do with the dies, of course, a lot of different layering options on there as well. So you could do this as one layer and then take, let's see, here's another one that I've done. Pop another one down in a different area and add some other leaves in there, and you can have some really cool different effects on there as well. So, okay, I'm gonna shuffle aside some of my inks here. Now with this card, this is the one that I showed you originally. This one is only doing two layers. So this is the silhouette layer was in Dewdrop, and then the third layer, it's hard to keep track of all of them, is done in Ocean Waves. So you're going to get a softer, more subtle, almost a kind of vintage look, I think. And also with the green, that's the frayed leaf on there. And then this one with all of the layers, at least on the flower, and one of the layers on the leaves. So again, you're able to get some really, really different looks. I was also playing earlier this morning, and I was doing this one on some slightly different cardstock. This is a little bit rougher cardstock. This is quite smooth. And you do get a slightly different look from all of the different kinds of paper that you're going to be working on. So the inks will react slightly differently, but I think you're going to get a beautiful look on all of them. So even just from this one color combination, my favorite color set, of course, is going to give you some really lovely looks. I do have a couple of other cards that I want to show you. We're not going to step through them, but I did want to show you one that I did. Again, same color scheme. It's this one here, and this was when I really got going. I was stamping, I was shading, I was die cutting, and it's amazing how quickly and easily you can create these so that you have enough to create sort of a cluster or a grouping on your card front. So for these, I just did the outline and that third layer with Aqualicious. And this one is using the first layer in Ocean Waves. So you can mix and match some of these as well. The leaves, of course, are just the outline, and then that, I think it's the third layer using frayed leaf. And then I've got my U stamped on here, and then this sentiment up on a separate strip. Again, working with lots of foam tape. I like to use that to create some additional layers on the cards, because if you're keeping things clean and simple, it's nice to have a little bit of lift with that. So I did want to share that one with you. And then I've got another one. I haven't done anything with it yet, and I'm not sure if I will. I'm not quite sure what I'm thinking of it. But I wanted to try the background, that outline stamp, just as a background on here. And then I did the leaves with all of the parts and pieces to it. And then this is the frame die. You guys know I love that frame die. I use this for so many different things. And I was just kind of playing around with creating focals. It's not even on a card front. It's just on a piece of white cardstock. So I'm not really sure what I'll do with this, but I was playing around with it, and I thought I'll show that to you too, because mostly because it's so different than what the other looks are going to get you, you know, and I do really love using some of those bold outlines as an all over background. So that has been a lot of fun. Okay, you guys, so I'm going to tilt up the camera and just run through again. Oops, should have warned you. Going to run through the stamps and supplies that I worked with, and then kind of flip through the cards that we did this evening. I've got my stamps everywhere, so I'm going to show you. I'll show you the packaging. I don't think I'm the only one who ends a session like this with stamps everywhere, inks everywhere, paper everywhere. So this is the Build-a-Flower Begonia stamp set that I have just fallen in love with. I think this is going to go to the front of all of my Altenew stamps. Like, I have them in these plastic containers, so I can kind of like a file folder system. I can flip through, and all of the ones that I use a lot are in the front, and they just stay there because I know that I can just pull those out quickly, and I've got something to work with right away. And don't forget, I mean, we talked about inspiration today, but there's a ton in here. There's also a ton on the Altenew website as well. Along with those, we were working with the Build-a-Flower Begonia dies. So that's really going to come in handy to do your layering. And then also the Flowing Drop stencil, which is just super duper useful. So I'll show you quickly, again, the cards that we did. This is using all of the layers of that flower the way you're supposed to. So option number one. And then also playing with the stencil, just creating a nice soft background with a stipple brush. You could probably do the same thing with a blending brush if you don't have a stipple brush. If you don't have a stipple brush, come over to my house because I've got plenty I can loan you. And then also working in some of those grays. And I just really do like that as another option to florals. We did our only 2-layer with a little bit of foam tape underneath and those leaves on there. Again, quite simple, quick and easy. And then our masked design. This is the original, and then this is the one that I did in the demo. So you can see again the different looks that you can get from this. And that's what I really appreciate from so many of Altenew's stamps. Oh, Christine, you want to watercolor this? Yes, absolutely. I think it would be beautiful watercolored. And I had to resist not using embossing powder on here, but I think it would be really pretty embossed as well. And then here is our multi-layered design on here. Oh, thank you so much saying that the card samples are stunning. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's easy when it's Altenew. I think we can all agree on that. And then here's another option. What will I do with this? I'm not sure, but it's been so much fun playing with this stamp set. I think that the possibilities really are pretty limitless. All of the inks that I used, remember, they're just the little cubes. You can mix and match whichever colors you happen to have on hand, whichever ones you like the best. If you are an ocean waves kind of person like me, or if you tend more to different colors, I think you could make some really beautiful colors, beautiful flowers in any of the colors. So we have just another minute. Please do share the video while we are live. Let us know that you shared. Post it down below in the comments. And you could be entered in for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store, which is probably a pretty good treat for any one of us. I know that I have a massive shopping list, massive wish list at Altenew. They've got some new things in too. So I'm sure you would be able to find something there. You're saying, oh, thank you so much. She's saying, I hope my cute little monkey and family are healthy. Yes, thank you. I hope yours are as well. I hope everybody is able to stay safe, healthy, at home as much as possible, and really let creativity help us get through this bit of a rough patch. I know that it has definitely helped me. Thank you to Aram for being behind the badge. I know that she's been frantically updating with all of the various supplies that I'm using, so thank you very much. And I thank you all for joining me tonight. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. I will be back again, not next week, but the week after. So I'll be busily working on some other projects for us. Take care, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful evening or afternoon, and I will catch you again next time. So thanks so much, you guys. Bye-bye.